Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Are these toxic assets keeping you poor? Do you think these are assets? And that's the step that you want to start with is if you're investing, if you're buying assets with the goal of financial freedom, of making work optional, which is the purpose of my content. My goal is to teach the average individual that you can reach financial freedom and make work completely optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position, which is what I did. One of the things I had to understand in the beginning was the difference between an asset and a liability. Robert Kiyosaki got a lot of hate in the 90s. I think it was 1997 when he came out with Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he tried to explain to people that your house might not be an asset. I think it's Schrodinger's asset or liability, that we don't know if it's an asset or a liability until we look at the numbers, right? A house where you rent out rooms and make more money than the mortgage can be an asset. A house that you live in and pay for can be a liability. But there's a lot of people who make investments that they are buying things that are considered to be assets. Nobody really argues that stocks can be an asset, real estate can be an asset, gold can be an asset. But not everybody realizes that some of those things can be bad assets, toxic. They can be the reason why you stay poor. And I'll just start right off the beginning with something, from my own experience. People say buying and owning a rental property is an asset. It's not a liability. What if it costs you money, right? The definition that people like Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset use is an asset puts money into your pocket and a liability takes money out. Well, what if you own a rental that's taking money out of your pocket? The first year I owned a rental, I lost money. So technically it was a liability. Or was it just a toxic asset? It could have been an asset had I managed it correctly, had I educated myself and not did all of the mistakes that ended up costing me money. And that's kind of an easy one to understand. When it comes to real estate, though, there are people who buy uh, an investment that makes money that, in my opinion, is still a toxic asset. An example would be if you live in a city where you buy a property and you do short-term rental and it makes money, right? You're making $4,000 or $5,000 a month renting it out short term. And then the municipality changes the laws or regulations, right? The hotel chains win their lawsuit. The city puts in rules that make it to where you can't do short-term rental. When you bought that property, did you make sure it would cash flow as a long-term rental if that was the only option you had remaining? Now, if you can rent it out for $2,000 or $3,000, and that doesn't even cover the mortgage in some cases, it was an asset that made money that could become toxic due to something outside of your control. To me, that's a toxic asset. Then let's go to, I said, real estate stocks, right? Now, I don't invest in stocks, so I don't even pretend to give advice on that. Anytime I reference stocks, I'll talk about somebody like Joe Kuhn or Azul or somebody here on YouTube. That's Kuhn, Joe Kuhn. He invested in stocks, retired at 54. He's been retired for like 6 years now. So any stock advice, get from him. But I understand enough to say if you invest in stocks and you have a well-diversified index portfolio, it's probably going to be a good asset. And yeah, it has ups and downs. If you buy it today, sell it next week when things dip and you lock in a loss, that's a liability. But if you do single stocks, look up the data on how many day traders lose money. It would be pretty easy to attack stocks, to attack real estate. Some people would say it's a little harder to attack gold. This is a hard asset because it's defined as an asset. Now, it's kind of like when somebody comes at you with an Amway sales pitch. Sounds great, looks good on a whiteboard, but actually run the math. How many starter packs do you actually have to sell in order to be positive cash flow wise? Let's take this with gold. Let's say you go and you look up the spot on gold, which right now was a 2,900 and something, and you buy it. Seems like gold has gone up in value because I can remember back to the dinosaur days when gold was, I don't know, 800 an ounce in the 80s or something. So it's gone up in value with inflation. It's a store of wealth. The value of gold and silver and precious metals doesn't change enough for it to be considered an investment that has a cash on cash return or a yield. And then even take it a step further, actually do the math. You're not going to go buy an ounce of gold for $2,900. I actually took a screenshot of you right now. Let's say you want to go buy gold. I probably should have shared screen. So as of March 2025, the spot price for gold is around $2,947 per ounce, meaning 1 ounce gold bar would cost roughly that amount. Now here's the trick. Plus any premiums or fees charged by the seller. You don't pay the spot price. You pay the spot price plus the profit that the person that you're buying it from is going to make. Now, let's say you wait a few months, gold goes up a little, and you want to sell it. Now, over 10, 15 years, it would probably go up enough with inflation to at least hold its value. But when selling gold, expect potential costs like buyer premium, anywhere from 1 to 10% of the sale price. Assay fees for testing purity and weight, potentially $20 to $50, refining fees if needed, and shipping costs if you're mailing it. To me, precious metals are not an investment. They're not a cash on cash asset because an asset puts money into your pocket and a liability takes it out. Gold and silver, precious metals are a store of wealth. Now, I have gold. I prefer to go with 10th ounce coins. And it's not because I think I probably bought it for $1,500 an ounce and I'll sell it someday for $3,000 an ounce in the future. No, it's 10th ounce coins so that when the end of the world happens, I have a tradable commodity value of gold. I don't want full ounces, I want 10th ounces. It has nothing to do with making money. I will probably lose money on the gold that I own because when I have to sell it, who knows what its value will be at. I have friends who buy multiple, multiple guns. And I think, owning 17 that all I'm very sad I lost in the boating accident last week, are not a store of wealth. But I have friends who buy them, have a gun safe full of them, rooms full of them, and whenever talking to them, they call them their assets. Right? You could sell that for not far off of what a new one costs, depending on its condition. But is it going up in value? Right? If you're collecting a specific type of gun that is super rare and there's a collector's market for it, maybe. But if you're buying firearms or Hot Wheels or anything like that, it is not an investment. It is not an asset that is going to produce cash flow. It could be a store of wealth. It could be a good asset to have around. Uh, Now let's get to the intangible ones. This is the one that I think is probably going to irritate the most people. How many times have you heard that skills can be an asset? If you are good at sales, not only could you get a sales job, but you're probably better at marketing yourself for a non-sales position. So people can say that an asset is the skills that you have. If you can play a musical instrument really good, sing, whatever it is, or be that guy that hangs out with three musicians, the drummer, maybe you can play gigs and make some money. That skill can be an asset. If I studied martial arts for decades, ran a dojo, then finally woke up and got into defensive tactics and actually learned how to fight. But it was a skill. I could market that skill. I got a CDL. I had the skill to drive a truck, drove trucks for years, became a CDL instructor. These were skills that I could market. Are you a gamer? What does your League of Legends skill set produce for you? Mental peace, yes, but what is it? It's really a time killer. It's like those people that come home and they think I can never do a side hustle because I need my 5 hours of Netflix every night. Is your TV trivia knowledge a skill set that is an asset, or is it a toxic asset? Your ability to answer all the TV trivia questions that come up when you go out with your friends for TV trivia night in that one category probably justifies in your head why you watch so much TV, so many streaming services, so many things that are what my family calls the television, the electronic income reducer. Is that a skill set you want to grow or develop? That can be a toxic asset. Then, how many times have you heard your net work is your net worth? The logic leap is take my position. I got involved with the One Rental at a Time community. I met investors like the Lumberjack Landlord, Millennial Mike, Beth Traverso, right? People who, to steal Matt's words, iron sharpens iron, right? Get around people who are doing better than me. Get that knowledge shrapnel that happens from just being in the conversations with them. My net worth tripled in the last since 2020. It's tripled. So 5 years, tripled my net worth. 2020 is when I passed the millionaire status. It's tripled since then because my net worth is related to my net work. Here's the important part that most people miss. That goes both ways. How many of your friends have the crab in a bucket mentality of dragging you down so that they're not alone in the bucket? That gaming skill set that you have, that I have, uh, I've used the excuse. It's how I stay in contact with friends that are at a distance. It's still an electronic income reducer. How many of your friends contribute, Dan, to your skill of drinking, right? You can't drink all day unless you start early. Does your drinking skill help you with financial freedom, cash flow, increasing your net worth? Is your drinking skill a good asset or a toxic asset? It could be an asset. You go to a bar, make a bet. I can outdrink you. Sure. I would never make that bet with Dan. Now I need to drink. Go through your list of things in your head that you've been considering an asset. Your rentals, your stocks, your retirement accounts. Is the retirement account an asset, a liability, or a toxic asset? If you have no way of investing, you don't invest in stocks, you don't invest in real estate, you don't invest in crypto, you don't have, because I'm not an entrepreneur, but maybe you are. But if you're not an entrepreneur growing a side hustle and you want to retire early, maxing out your retirement accounts can make it a toxic asset. It's taking away the money that you could be investing. Yes, get the match, not because it's free money, because it's your money. If your company didn't offer a 401k, your compensation would be higher. So if you don't get the match, you're actually willingly giving up part of your compensation package. But if you want to retire early and you lock up a bunch of your money behind a paywall, that's a toxic asset. If you don't invest and you don't plan on retiring until you're sold, you can enjoy your retirement. Sure, retirement accounts are great. But go through your list and let me know. What things do you have that you thought were an asset? And now you realize they're still an asset, but they're a toxic asset. Because the more good assets you own, the more liabilities you can have that are paid for by your assets. This is a nice short live stream. If you want your questions answered during a live stream every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I will answer all the questions in the chat, even the rude ones. Howdy, Cody. Tony Carr. Howdy. Thank you so much for the super chat. It is much appreciated. I like that. One thing it does is it proves that this was recorded live, because one of the most important things to me for live videos is getting what is in an investor's mind that is kept in top of mind awareness. What do I have to know in order to make quick decisions that help me not only reach financial freedom, but stay here? Because the ultimate failure I think that could happen in my life is that I would have to go back and live the life like most people do. I don't want that. I don't want that for you either.